Caddis Maximus here, this time with a quick review in comparison of the Harbor Freight ThunderBolt Magnum alkaline and rechargeable nickel metal hydride batteries. This pretty much covers most of Harbor Freight's range. They do have a much more budget, cheaper green type of rechargeable nickel metal hydride. I don't have any of those. And it appears, unfortunately, that these pre-charged rechargeable batteries, they've discontinued that product, probably because just not enough people were purchasing it. Because these would have been Harbor Freight's most expensive rechargeable battery. However, pre-charged rechargeable modern nickel metal hydride batteries are incredible. And so part of this review is to really question why people continue to buy disposable alkaline batteries. There are a few situations where you could use a little bit of extra voltage off the alkaline, but that's really hit or miss. And at some point, I'm going to do a better review kind of showing discharge rates. There are quite a few YouTube videos. They're pretty technical, but they get into the real world performance of rechargeable nickel metal hydride batteries versus their alkaline counterparts. And the alkalines, it's really just wasting money. These pre-charged batteries, you could recharge these 5 or 10 times and they would have paid themselves off, literally 5 or 10 times. That would be 5 or 10 sets of regular alkaline batteries that you've replaced or that you would have used and thrown away would have just been made up with recharging one of these 10 times. And these can be recharged 1,000. Some of these modern, like Eneloops, advertise 2,000 charge cycles if you take care of them properly. And the pre-charged ones are unbelievable. They really do hold their charge just like an alkaline battery. You can charge them up, throw them in the drawer, and 3 months later, get them and use them. Just like a lithium ion battery. Anyway, as far as alkaline batteries are concerned and buying disposable batteries, I recommend the more premium ThunderBolt Magnum orange Harbor Freight cells. Especially when they're on sale. When they're on sale, they are much cheaper than Costco's Kirkland Signature, which oftentimes has received great reviews for price for performance on disposable alkaline batteries. I think the Harbor Freights are probably the best. They probably have the best bang for the buck, quote unquote, for disposable alkaline batteries. And if you're throwing the batteries away, there really isn't a lot of reason to buy like expensive energizers. This isn't a disposable, but nonetheless, buying expensive Duracells and energizers just does not make economic sense. And chargers these days aren't like they used to be. Unfortunately, Harbor Freight does not sell a very good charger, but all over Amazon, the modern chargers, they'll plug into the wall. They're known as independent cell chargers, so they'll charge 4 AAAs or 4 AAs. But each each section, each cell is like an independent charger. So a 4-cell charger is actually 4 1.5 volt chargers in one body. So you can put in any combination of batteries, a couple of fully charged ones, a half charged one, and an empty one. And it's not going to overheat and have all those kind of issues you used to have because it's not going to try to overcharge, a partially charged battery, just trying to fill up the empty one that's sitting next to it. They can detect the charge in each and every pocket and charge each battery individually. So it makes it much more convenient. And I'll eventually get to some battery charger reviews displaying those, as well as much nicer chargers, such as lacrosse chargers, which are the same thing. They have individual power banks, but they have digital displays. So you can get these chargers that actually have digital displays, measure the voltage, measure how much energy is going into the battery. You can recondition it, discharge, and then recharge it to actually measure how much capacity it has. So on and so forth. So one of the traditional arguments used to be is that a AA alkaline battery, a nice fresh one, would have anywhere from 3 to 4 amp hours. It really varies. A really premium Duracell Quantum may have upwards of 4 amp hours of power, where this Harbor Freight one probably is closer to 2.5 amp hours. Where these are a 2.3 amp hour, or 2300 milliamp hour for the AA size, and only 900 milliamp hour for the AAA size, where it would be probably near double that for the alkaline. But there's a dirty secret. That dirty secret is alkalines share a shameful similarity to lead-acid batteries. That similarity is that when you run them hard, say electric remote control cars, high-power flashlights, things that will suck them dry in a couple of hours or just a few hours, they don't actually deliver that full capacity. For instance, this 1.5 volt AAA battery, if it were say 3 amp hours, would deliver 4.5 watts for 1 hour. But that's not how it works, and it's actually not how it works with a lead acid battery. If you buy a lead acid battery that's rated at 100 amp hours, they're lying to you, because that test is done over a 20-hour period, and then they interpolate it back to a 1-hour discharge rate. But lead acid and alkaline sacrifice a disproportionate amount of their energy when you put them in high draw or high amperage usage situations. Meaning that if I made this power just a small LED light that, say, lasted for 24 hours, I would probably get my full 4.5 watts out of it if it were a 3 amp hour battery. Now, if I had it powering an electric fan, that was, say, a 4.5 watt fan, it would only drive that fan for, say, 30 minutes, maybe, and actually deliver only half its rated wattage. It would power it wouldn't power that 4.5 watt fan for an hour, it would power it for 30 minutes. But that doesn't make sense. Well, it kind of does, because in order to deliver high amperage, it really sacrifices a lot of the chemistry in a disproportionate amount. It uses extra charge that isn't delivered actually to the load, just in order to get it to push some extra amps. And that's why sometimes you think, God, you know, the batteries in this one device seem to work just fine. And then I use these same alkaline batteries in something else, and they seem to be just terrible and hardly last at all. You really need to pay attention to exactly how much juice the device is using. And that's where nickel metal hydrides really step up. Nickel metal, you can feel the density of those nickel metal hydride batteries. They're significantly heavier than their alkaline counterparts. The second thing is that this also has a similar issue of sacrificing disproportionately its capacity in order to deliver higher amperage loads, but it's a very small amount, like 5 or 10%. It's really almost imperceptible. Meaning that in a remote control car, this, even though on the label this battery may have 50% less amp hours than this alkaline, you put this in a remote control car or a fan that uses high wattage, and you're going to find that this battery may even last longer than the brand new alkaline, even though it's rated for significantly less capacity, just because it doesn't sacrifice itself, or does so at a very small degree, just because you're using it in a high draw device. The only real exception to that would be things like NiCad batteries, and I still have these just for a couple reasons, for a few situations like where you really just need to suck them down and then charge them up fast. NiCads and lithium ion, although lithium ion is not perfect, NiCad, to my knowledge, is still the only battery technology that is perfect, i.e. that this 1 amp hour, 1.2 volt battery, you could draw it down, you could put it in a load where it lasts 24 hours, or you could draw it down in 2 minutes, and you would still get its rated capacity, the 1.2 watts. Not very high there. And of course, that's the issue. Besides the toxicity of nickel cadmium, some of the issues where they do not like to be left sitting in the charger, that's probably the biggest issue with what ruins NiCad batteries, is being left baking in the charger. And the fact that even a high quality one, this 1000 milliamp hour actually is considered a high capacity NiCad AA, is still less than half. I mean, it's almost 40% the capacity of this nickel metal hydride precharged. And we did mention that these precharge hold their charge for much greater periods of time than the NiCads do. Now I'm going to do some quick voltage tests on these. I haven't charged these batteries or any of these rechargeables in easily a year. It's actually been a long time since I used them. Harbor Freight had some sales on these alkalines. I got some, and I've actually, just turns out I don't go through that many batteries, and so I'm still kind of working through the alkalines. But of course, when I need to, I will do use the rechargeables. But it'll be a nice test, because we'll be able to compare a bunch of these together and see what their voltages look like. Now, the last thing to mention is, as I've seen in my local store, they still have some of these on the shelf. And you know they're the special ones because they're gray. Online, they're not available anymore. All they have is their more traditional ones, which are these, and they have a mustard or a brownish color, and they're 2200 milliamp hour, not 2300. So and they still are pretty good, but these are what I consider to be just standard grade nickel metal hydride batteries. Definitely not pre-charged. And if you can't find the gray ones, that was part of the review, was just if people see these gray ones, the pre-charged ones, to pick them up. Otherwise, you're kind of stuck, and you really do want to get a better brand, such as an Eneloop or maybe an Energizer Recharge. Also, what's interesting is traditionally, these standard nickel metal hydrides that have a slight more capacity than the pre-charged ones. However, whoever Harbor Freight bought these from actually was pretty high quality, and they exceeded they're the inverse, so they're actually a little better than Harbor Freight standard ones. Let's zoom out a little bit here. We'll do a quick voltage measurement, and we have an Eneloop that hasn't been charged for a year. We have what used to be the older, I'd say upwards of 5 years ago, the premium grade nickel metal hydride batteries. These were the Maja Powerex nickel metal hydride batteries. They were pretty nice. They were 1800 milliamp hour. Obviously, they're more capacity now. And even then, they were advertising chargeable up to 1,000 times. But I've never really had particularly good luck with those. And we have a couple of Energizer recharges. I did bring out a Lithium Ion 18650 to really compare, what we're looking at in modern era. And the 18650 is quite a bit bigger than a AA battery. They're specifically designed, they're just kind of like an oversized AA, but they can't be used in a C cell or a D cell. So they're longer than a C or a D cell, and a little bit bigger around than a AA battery. So they're kind of like a giant AA. I don't think that they have twice the volume, but they may be close to having twice the volume of this battery. This is a pretty decent, this is a Samsung cell. It's a 2.5 amp hour at 3.7 volts. Meaning essentially for a bit of extra volume, a little bit of, I wouldn't even say, it's about 20% longer and about 20% larger in diameter. You get a battery that has triple the capacity. Modern lithium ion ferrite polymer batteries can be recharged thousands of times, easily beating pre-charged nickel metal hydride. They're lightweight, and they can deliver high amperage. This cell here is rated for 20 amps of maximum discharge. So that's really what's been taking over. But the issue is to prevent, have fires and safety issues. They specifically have made lithium ion cells a different shape. Now, there are lithium disposable batteries, and those aren't to be confused with lithium ion rechargeable batteries. And it seems Energizer pretty much has a market control on the lithium batteries. Everywhere you go, it's pretty much exclusively Energizer. Where they AA's, you have Energizer and Duracell and off-brands, but when it comes to the lithium batteries, it's surprising. So let's do some voltage measurements here. We have a decent voltage measurement device. I've done a little review of this. This is my Fluke 375 induction meter, and it is true RMS. So here's a 9 volt. I haven't checked this one in quite some time. What are we looking at here? Oh, you can't even see that because 7.7 volts. Now the nice thing about devices that use 9 volts is with more voltage, it's easier to make electronics work because they don't have to be so super efficient and direct because you have a tiny voltage, so any kind of voltage drop messes it up. And the other nice thing about 9 volt battery powered electronics is they're made to take a wide range. Usually they'll go work all the way down to 6 volts. And so even after a year, you can see that this battery could be tossed in and used. It probably only has half or less of its charge. I should say charge, because this could easily be recharged. It's not a ruined battery. But we will compare it to a regular alkaline, which is nice and high, 9.6 volts. So that is a difference there. When this charges up, it'll hit about 8.5 volts peak and then start dropping to 8 pretty quickly, and then it'll kind of ride at 8 volts for most of the rest of its life. Let's compare some of the rest of these. And since so many of these have not been charged, actually I think all of these have not been charged, this will be a nice comparison. So let's go and we know the AA's are going to work out pretty nice, but let's go and compare these 4 AAA's. What we have is a pre-charged, rechargeable Harbor Freight, we have the standard high capacity. So these would be their premium nickel metal hydride batteries because they don't have the pre-charged ones anymore at Harbor Freight. Then we have an Eneloop and a Energizer recharge, and I think these are all the same capacity. 900 milliamp hours on both the Harbor Freights, 700 milliamp hours on the Energizer. Didn't realize that. And what is Panasonic? 750 on the Eneloop. So they're actually really pushing on these Harbor Freights, advertising the absolute maximum. Now I've run these through the lacrosse chargers, and going through a discharge and recharge cycle, they're not lying. It just may be that it's only the first 100 cycles that they hit those capacities, and then they start to diminish. But if we just do the little Pepsi challenge here, I couldn't, verify. I don't have a camera that these have not been charged for a year, but and it's not dead, but it's not bad. It's 0.9 volts on the Harbor Freight pre-charged. Now on the standard grade one, you can see there's a big difference, almost half the charge level that the pre-charge. So the pre-charge is doing what it's supposed to. If we compare it to the Eneloop, the Eneloop's pretty high. This one may not be a year old. This battery here may be 6 months. It's been many, many months since I bought this and haven't recharged it, so it was in the packaging. But the Eneloops are known as being the top quality. The Panasonic Eneloop is supposedly one of the best or the best pre-charged, rechargeable nickel metal hydride battery on the market. They really are nice. They just charge an arm and a leg for them. We can also see that Energizer is doing pretty well too, and the Energizers aren't bad. I've actually had a few friends get the Energizer ones, and I've asked them, and a year later, they're still using them. Now let's go and compare a big old pile of AA's here. We've got 7 of them, including some NiCads. And NiCads are notorious for losing their voltage, but these are pretty new and haven't had many cycles on them. And so it'll be kind of a nice challenge. So we'll start off with, we'll get that in the same order here. The Harbor Freight pre-charged, 0.9 volts. The Harbor Freight standard high capacity nickel metal hydride, 0.6. So once again, both of these have been about the same time since they've been charged, and there's just a way more loss on the standard ones. Here's a 1,000 milliamp hour NiCad, and it's at a volt. That's actually really good. How about this Malibu? The Malibu is actually doing better. That's really surprising. To see 1.2 volts out of a NiCad that hasn't been charged for months really indicates a high purity electrolytes in it. The Eneloop is 1.3. Excellent. It's actually months later, it's still over the advertised 1.2 volts. 0.9 on the Maja Powerex battery, and 1.2 on the Energizer recharge. So through this empirical testing here, or basically it's empirical testing, surprisingly enough, the Harbor Freight high capacity nickel metal hydride rechargeable is actually surprisingly low performance and really does lose its charge pretty quickly. So when these are on sale, they're a pretty good price, but you can also hunt around and find coupons for the Eneloops and the Energizers. And to tell you the truth, when it comes to buying these rechargeable batteries, you kind of got to really consider just buy the alkalines, just buy disposables, unless you're really going to try to make use of the rechargeable batteries. And if you are going to make use of the rechargeable batteries, don't buy just a junky charger from Harbor Freight. It's a shame that Harbor Freight doesn't have at least an independent cell charger when they're selling, kind of nice rechargeable batteries, or they used to. Maybe that was part of the issue, is people buy these pre-charged ones and actually ruin them through various forms of overcharging. And that's something to consider, is it's much easier to do that with these pre-charged ones, because oftentimes they will not be at the same level of discharge. And cheesier or cheaper battery chargers charge in series. 2 batteries are put together and it runs 3 volts through them. And if you have one battery that's halfway full and one that's empty, this is going to hit its full charge voltage, 1.3 or 1.4 volts, while this is still dropping voltage, and so it won't add up to 3, and it just keeps on overcharging, and that's when you notice one battery is super hot, and it's just ruining the battery while it's trying to fill up this one. So it's really critical that you have those independent cell chargers. That simple property about a charger really makes a big difference to buying a set of rechargeable batteries and actually having them last a decent amount of time, much less getting anywhere close to their advertised hundreds, if not 1,000 to 2,000 charge cycles out of them. But if you do take care of them, especially with something like the Eneloops, and even these nicer pre-charged rechargeable Harbor Freights, you can literally use these up and recharge them once a day for 5 years, or upwards of 5 years, but certainly multitudes of years, well over a year, even if you're charging and discharging these 2 to 3 times a day. And then that's just ridiculous. You know how much 1,000 AA's cost some Harbor Freight? A heck of a lot more than a charger and some rechargeable batteries, that's for sure. Anyway, that was the end of my long Harbor Freight review and rechargeable battery diatribe. I really appreciate everybody watching. Please subscribe to the Catus Maximus channel. Until next time, bye.